Welcome to Undercurrents of Romance, the show that celebrates every subgenre of romantic fiction. In each episode, I peel back the layers of your favorite love stories and chat with the talented authors who bring them to life. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. Now, let's dive in with today's guest. Hello, romantics. I'm here with New York Times bestselling author Susan Dennard to talk about her YA fantasy and instant bestseller, The Executioners 3. Welcome to the show, Susan.
Thanks for having me, Tracy.
Oh, very, very glad to have you here. I've been following you for many, many years, and so it's a true honor to have you on the show here. And congratulations. As I mentioned, this was an instant bestseller hitting New York Times, USA Today, Indie, and probably others by now that I did not come across in my research. So that's got to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was. It's such a quirky book. I wasn't expecting a whole lot with it. So that was a great testament to the power of my readers. They showed up. It's always fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, and you're obviously you're not a stranger to these bestseller lists, but I have to wonder, even at this stage in your career, does your writerly heart let out a big sigh of relief whenever those announcements come through that you hit these lists?
Yes and no. So in the past, for sure, I felt an immense pressure to be on the lists, and so the build up to the Wednesday when the list gets released after the week after your book comes out, it's like just so anxious. It's horrible. I don't enjoy it
Yeah.
because you feel a lot of pressure to perform for your publisher's sake. They've worked so hard for your own sake. But with this book, I just really did not expect it. So I had completely given up on that. And I didn't even know it was a Wednesday. And then one of my friends texted me and was like, congrats. I was like, congrats for what? I'm at my kid's Taekwondo class. What are you talking about? So no, and it was very enjoyable. It was such a surprise
Yeah.
that it was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is actually one of the, other than the very first time I hit in 2016, this is actually a time I was able to really enjoy it. So
Oh, that's great. I'm very happy to hear that. As I mentioned before we hit record, I've been a fan of yours for quite some time, and I get your newsletter, and so I read about kind of the origin story, I guess, of this book, if I could call it that. And maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself first and your writing journey, and then we'll jump in to the book, and maybe you could share with us how the concept and how you started writing it and kind of time in between when you didn't and all that sort of thing, whatever you're comfortable with sharing.
yeah. So I've been a published author since 2012. That's when my debut came out, and I first decided to try and become a published author back in like 2009. And I sat down and wrote a book, and it was bad. And then I wrote another, and it was better. And I really worked on that one and did all the things we do as writers to improve our craft. And eventually was lucky enough to get a book deal. I make it sound easier than it was. It's a
Yeah.
tough industry, as you well know. And I, at the time, this was back in 2011, before my first book had even come out. I was living in Germany, and my husband and I were looking at maybe moving back to the US. And we came over to the States in October, and I had forgotten just how incredible American fall is. Autumn in the US is a real vibe. And
Hmm.
it just sang to my heart in a way that I was like, wow, I miss this. Just there's just this 3 week window, and the leaves change in fall, and it's incredible. And so when I got back, I started writing a contemporary at the time romance set in, it was YA though, set in fall, in a tiny town, and love reading romance. And I commend romance authors who make it the entire plot. I am completely incapable of it. I just completely petered out. And I've tried many times since then to make myself just a romance author. I love reading them so much, and I can't seem to do it. I always add plot. And so I added, and not that there isn't plenty of plot in romance, I just can't crack it. So I add external things. So I added ghosts and murder. And over the years, I would work on it every fall when the vibes were strong. But I never really finished it. And I was working on The Witchlands, which is high fantasy, and it was so different that, my publisher was like, "Yeah, we're not really sure about this. This is so different. Let's see what else you got. We'll put a pin in that. I'm impatient, so I decided in 2018 to just put it on Wattpad and see what people thought. And so I did that, and readers responded very well. Yes, it was a big departure from what I normally wrote, but people seemed to be hungry for it. And um, so I posted most of that book, but I was going through IVF at the time, and it was very difficult. So this was sort of my little, I'm cheating on what's due by working on this. It's fun, it's light. Yes, there's murder, but it's like such a cozy book at the end of the day and
Hmm.
very romance driven. So it was my escape while I was going through that. And then unfortunately though, right as I was at the climax and posting that online, I had a miscarriage and did not want to finish this book. I didn't want to work on anything for a while, and then by the time I did pull myself back together to write again, I had no choice. I had to work on the Witchlands. So
Yeah.
that's where my focus was for a few years until finally, after the Luminaries, my publisher was like, now seems like a good time for Executioners 3. That seems like a good follow-up to the Luminaries. So here we are,
Oh,
2025.
that's amazing. And just this is a curiosity from, one author talking to another author. Did you let or I guess how did your publisher respond to the fact that you had published this on Wattpad? Was that even a issue for them or
They
was
no, they really didn't care. I mean,
no?
and technically it's still up there. I haven't even pulled it. So,
Okay.
admittedly, it's not the whole book. It's also been edited. So it's different. It's the same bones and the same. It's really fascinating because I barely changed anything with the characters and even the dialogue, but I kept tweaking the mystery because I could see a better way to do it. So I would go in and like rewrite what clues she found and maybe the order she
Ah.
found them. But it was always still the same exact bones, the romance, nothing there has changed. But yeah, no, that didn't even ever really come up. They were just like, great. Well, let those
Oh,
readers know you finally finished it and it's for sale. And I will say too, they've used it for sort of like ads. They've done ads on Wattpad, which isn't something they would normally necessarily
yeah.
target. So yeah,
Huh.
it's been interesting.
I'll be darned. That's a very interesting. I've not heard that before, and so I'm great to hear that that worked out for you. And obviously, your Wattpad fans as well as your regular fans did really nicely for you on pre-orders and sales and everything. So that all worked out great. That's wonderful. So, what can you tell us about this? The name of it is very interesting, and you'll find out right away when you read the book what the name or what the title refers to. But what can you tell us about Freddie and Theo's story?
Yeah, so Freddie Geller is a like 17-year-old in high school, and she lives in a tiny town where everybody knows everybody. It's got a little tourist trap vibe to it, except if you've ever lived in a tourist town, we both like I do, you love and you hate the tourists. And
Ah,
so
yes, right.
that's very much the vibe of this tiny village. And she goes to the local high school. Meanwhile, Theo, our primary love interest, attends the rich, snobby prep school that's a boarding school just outside of town. And the schools, unsurprisingly, have quite a rivalry going. And every year there's a prank war, and it's been going for like 20 years. So when the book opens, Freddie accidentally gets a lot of the students at the rival prep school arrested. She hears screams in the woods. She calls the police. Of course, she thinks someone's dying. But in fact, when the police get to the woods, they just find a bunch of these boarding school kids drinking, and so they arrest them. So now, this guy Theo, who is the head of the prank squad at the boarding school, has his sights like set directly on Freddie. When the book opens. Yeah, that's pretty much chapter one.
Yeah, no, that's great. And this book is set in 1999, I believe, is
Yes,
the
that's right.
year. I have noticed because I work in the suspense and thriller genre as well, and I noticed there's a growing trend in those genres to set the books in the 90s, but that's mostly to get around the technology issue
Um,
that they have. I
that's
really,
it.
is that why you did it too? Was to try and get around
That
that? Yeah.
that's definitely it. I think another part. I do think there is right now a real nostalgia for the 90s when times felt simpler,
Yeah.
pre-smartphone,
Yeah.
pre-social
Social
media.
media.
Yeah,
Yes.
life was, I mean, it had
Yeah.
plenty of complications, but it didn't have those as well. And
Yeah.
so
Heightened. Yeah.
I keep being drawn to it. I have four more books coming that are sort of this sort of horror romance mystery vibe, and they're all set in the 90s as well. And I think part of it is that nostalgia. I was in high school in the 90s, and also part of it is, like you said, it gets around. It's a lot easier to solve a mystery now when you can just Google it, or AI will
Right.
give you an answer. Who knows if it's accurate, but it'll give you one.
And all
And
the CCTV and all of that
yeah,
sort of
and
thing. Right. Yeah.
I wanted Freddie, and all my other characters in these future books to have to go to a library. They have to go to a newspaper archives to find answers. And and two, you're not connected all the time. It's a lot scarier when you're in the woods and you don't have service. You don't even have a phone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Freddie is she's such an interesting character, and I've had a hard time in my own mind settling a word that really kind of best describes her, you know. Um, there's kind of like an innocence about her, but also the keen intelligence, and she's plagued by all the teenage feelings, yet she's unafraid to grasp what she wants. And I was kind of curious when you were writing her, because she is there on the page every single time. I mean, she is Freddie, right? Is
Yeah.
there like a phrase or something like that that you use to anchor her in your mind, or was she just one of those characters that you saw very clearly?
I mean, yeah, she has a very strong voice. That is not a voice that I can ever repeat with somebody else because it's so uniquely her. Um, she reads almost like a cheeky British heroine from, I don't know, from the
Yeah.
late 1800s. She's very strong voice indeed to speak like Freddie would. And yeah, she's sassy, she's cheeky, and she's very much her own person in a way that I think, I mean, most teens are not. I certainly was not. I wish that I had been more like Freddie. She's very confident in who she is. And it doesn't mean she's not plagued with like some doubts or insecurities, but overall, this is who she is, and she doesn't feel much need to adapt for other people for
Mhm.
that. Um, and the world, as a rule, actually respects her for that choice to just be herself. And in fact, it impresses the love interest at the other school. And so. Yeah, I don't have a good word for her either.
Yeah.
She just
Okay.
is so very clear in my head, and yeah, and is so very Freddie. I feel like readers will either really like it or they'll be like, "Oh no, this is too strong." Ooh.
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
think she's a character where you have to read maybe a chapter, a full chapter or so to kind of get her rhythm down because you're
mhm.
like, this isn't like a teenager nowadays, kind of thing, how they talk. And so, yeah, there is a little bit of a rhythm there that you got to get used to. But once you do, it's so much fun. It is just so much fun. I loved how she negotiated with her mom, like when her mom wanted her to be in the talent show and that sort of thing. I'm careful with spoilers, so I won't go any farther, but I thought that that was great. And also, I wanted to mention you were talking about romance, and I thought that the first kiss that you did with the love interest, I thought that was so sweet and so romantic and so, it's like one of those teenagey feels that you remember, right? And so I
Yeah.
thought you did great with that. So I know you said you're not a romance writer, but I thought you did that
Well, thank you.
scene
I think
wonderfully.
I do romance quite well when it's not the scaffolding I'm relying on.
Yeah.
Apparently, I
Well,
just can't rely on that. But yes, thank you. And I mean that's why I love writing YA too, though, is because the stakes for the romance always feel as high
yeah.
as the stakes for everything else. Yes, there's a murderer on the loose, but oh my gosh, kissing that boy. Woo!
Yes. Right,
And
right, right.
I just when you're a teen, that everything feels it's like everything feels high stakes. Your relationships, your romance, your school, day to day.
Yeah.
And I love that about it.
Yeah, yeah, and I write romantic suspense, so I know exactly what you mean about I don't think I could write a contemporary
Yeah.
romance.
Yeah.
I have to have death and dismemberment in there too as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right. Well, one of the things that I like to dive into on this show is finding the story's undercurrent with the author, and that's what I call the second beating heart of the story that typically flows beneath the lover's journey, and it also helps propel that story forward. Can you think about that a little bit and maybe tell us what undercurrent you think is flowing beneath Freddie and Theo's story?
It's interesting because their romance isn't the main plot, you know? So to me, the
Yeah.
romance is the secondary story, and the solving of the mystery and the murders and the ghosts is the primary
That's a
propulsion.
perfectly fine answer too. No
Yeah,
worries.
there's the propulsion, and
Yeah.
then sort of on the side, but ultimately connected, is this boy who has sort of she has accidentally come into his crosshairs, and how that plays out because it turns out too that he's much more deeply connected into the community than she realized for a guy who she thought was just an out of towner
Yeah.
going to the boarding school. And so for me, I love it. One of my favorite things about writing is the feeling of an earned payoff. And so planting little seeds that eventually build into a big, oh gosh, I didn't see that coming, but it was there all along moment. And so I enjoyed making it feel initially like the romance was completely separate and Theo's character were completely separate from the primary plot regarding the bodies in the woods. And then, of course, as we come along, maybe they're not so separate. Maybe there's an overlap on this Venn diagram.
Yeah, right, right, right. Well, just to change, I guess, focus here just a little bit from the actual story is uh, this is being a romance podcast. I typically like to talk about tropes a little bit with the author. And one of them that stuck out to me with this story is maybe just rivals to lovers. Can you think of any other tropes that readers could look forward to with this story?
I mean, certainly that's the primary romantic trope. I will admit I'm terrible at tropes myself in
Yeah.
terms of like identifying them, but you know, there's an accidental first kiss trope going, which is a favorite of mine where oh, we kissed and we liked it. Ruh-roh. What do we do now? And outside of the romance, there's a very strong friendship arc going, and so I do love a good squad trope.
Yeah.
You know, each person brings their own skills to the squad, even if that skill is kind of wild for one of the characters who is a bit reckless when he drives. Um, and so, yeah, that's the top ones that come to me, in addition to the sort of the teen sleuth trope, which I do love as well.
Okay, great. Is there a, you mentioned that you like to read romance novels. Is there a novel that you've read recently that you loved and would recommend?
Yeah, I just actually I don't actually read a whole lot of romance lately, but I did just reread, and in preparation for a new book, Sharon Shin. She's old school romantic fantasy, like we're talking 20 plus years ago. And she, after many years away, released a novella in this beloved 12 Houses world. So I reread all of those, and I really love the way she does this very kind of cozy romance in the fantasy space. And then I just finished the novella, which was excellent. It was everything I wanted it to be. It was very romantic.
All right, great, great, great. So, what is your favorite thing to do when you finish a book? How do you celebrate or treat yourself, or do you?
I don't. I'm very bad about that. I just immediately am like, well, now what do I do with all this anxious energy? New file, open, go back to the work on something else. I do find because especially when I'm trying to get a book turned in and I'm working under a deadline, I get pretty keyed up. And it was very hard for me to like tone that energy down once it's sent and
Yeah.
emailed. And so I almost always immediately jump into something else, or I'll just hammer off the to-do list that builds up because boys, as you know, when you're an author,
Yeah.
there's just so much stuff you have to do secondary to the writing, and I tend to let it
Hmm.
pile up and then hammer it out. Um, so yeah, that's I'm not great about celebrating. I'm someone who very much exists. in the future, for better or worse. And so I'm already
Mm.
thinking about what the next thing is that I want to do and get to, and whatever came before is done. It's gone from my brain. So
Well, it sounds like you have the next 4 years
I,
planned
I
out.
do,
You
I
eventually,
do.
yeah.
I have a few years coming. Yeah.
All right, great, great. Well, when you are not writing, and say not reading, what is your favorite thing to do?
Well, I have a kid. I have a 5-year-old, so I spend a lot of time with her, and playing with her, managing her. And she's now of the age where she started kindergarten, so that means she's doing
Yeah,
extracurricular
nice.
activities. So I feel like I spend a lot of time driving her places now and watching her do things like ballet or taekwondo. I myself also do martial arts, so oops, sorry about that. So
That's okay.
I took some years off with COVID and the baby, and now I'm getting back into that, which has been great. I also play a lot of video games, although I tend to move through boom and bust periods with those. Usually I play a lot when I'm stuck in a story and I need to let my subconscious work. I can just
Yeah.
feel the itch. Um, but yeah, I like to play video games and then read some. Also, I tend to go through a boom and bust period with those where I'll just read a ton of books and then nothing for like 4 months. So yes, as you can tell, I'm someone who's kind of like a phoenix, and I go hard and then burn out and move.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, great.
Sorry about the puppy barking.
No worries. I
She
have one of
finished.
those running around too, so
I gave her a bone to distract her, and now she's done, so she's ready to go. Jumba, hey.
she knows mama's not giving her the attention, all of the
No, pretty
attention to her,
much.
right? Well, before we go, can you give us a hint about what's up next, or are those murder books kind of mum's the word?
I mean, we should be announcing soon. So I'm not too worried about it, and I definitely talked about it when I was touring. Oops. But yeah, I do have four more books coming, and they're not quite like Executioners 3 because again, Freddie is such a unique voice. I cannot repeat her, but they are still these 90s set romance driven horror romance mysteries. And then and those will start coming out next year. Yeah, so
All
they're
right.
coming out pretty quickly. And yeah, so you guys can
Okay.
expect at least one if not two books from me next year.
Oh, great. All
Yeah.
righty. Well, folks, when this episode airs, The Executioners 3 will be out, so be sure to order your copy. It's already a bestseller out there, folks, so lots of folks are loving it. So grab your copy so you don't have the FOMO going on. You can check out Susan's website at susandennard.com. She has a vibrant reader and writer community on her Substack, which you can also find through her website. What social media platform are you most active on, Suze?
I mean, I use Instagram, but I pretty much only use it to post news and things and
Okay.
promote the books. I don't really update my life there, so I usually recommend people if they want to actually know what I'm up to follow my newsletters. That's where I'm the most active and responsive.
Okay. And on Instagram, can you tell us what your handle is there,
Yes,
please?
yeah, I should do that. It's
Sure.
at St. Dennard. So,
Okay.
you know,
Great.
it's like Saint Bernard, but Saint Dennard if you want to.
Dennard.
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, Susan or Suze. I keep saying Susan because
Oh,
that's what
it's
I had in
fine.
my
You can
head,
call
but
me
sorry about
Susan
that.
too. That
Suze.
works as
All
well.
right. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It was so great meeting you, and congrats again on the book's early success. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you again for having me. I'm glad to chat about writing any chance I get. So,
Absolutely. Well, many thanks to everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Undercurrents of Romance. You can find more information about the show at tracydevlyn.com/podcast. Undercurrents of Romance is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. I'll be back soon with another great romantic read. In the meantime, enjoy the adventure, everyone.